By noon, everyone in the office had already decided I was guilty. Not because they had proof, not because they had heard my side, but because the boss wife cried in front of the entire staff and pointed her trembling finger at me. The same woman who used to smile across the conference table and say I was her favorite employee had left me standing alone under the fluorescent lights, holding a folder full of lies, while my name, my years of hard work, and the last piece of my dignity burned in front of everyone. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the truth finding its way back into the light, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Diaries. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the people who break us are also the reason we finally discover our own strength. My name is Arman Vale, and for 6 years I worked at Harrow and Finch Interiors, a polished design company that sold luxury homes a dream before the walls were even painted. I was not the loudest person in the building, not the one wearing expensive watches or making speeches at company dinners. I was the man who arrived before the sun got too hot, unlocked the storage room, checked invoices, fixed mistakes no one noticed, and stayed late when clients changed their minds at the last minute. My desk sat near the wide glass windows where afternoon sunlight spilled across sample books and blueprints, and I used to think that light meant I had built a safe life. I was wrong. The owner, Caspian Harrow, was charming in the way successful men often are when other people carry their burdens quietly. He shook hands, smiled for photos, and promised clients perfection, while employees like me made sure perfection actually happened. His wife, Serafina Harrow, handled client relations. She was elegant, soft-spoken, always dressed as if she had stepped out of a magazine, and she had a gift for making people feel chosen. For reasons I never fully understood, she chose me often. She praised my patience, asked for my opinion, brought me coffee during long meetings, and told new hires that if they wanted to learn loyalty, they should watch Arman. I was embarrassed by it, but I was grateful too. After years of being invisible, being appreciated felt like sunlight on a cold floor. That summer, the company landed its biggest project yet, the renovation of the Belmere estate, a historic mansion owned by a wealthy retired judge named Octavius Belmere. The contract was worth more than anything our company had ever handled, and Caspian made it clear that failure was not an option. For 3 weeks, the office lived inside that project. Fabric samples covered tables, marble suppliers called non-stop, and every approval had to be documented. Serafina insisted I manage the financial paperwork because, in her words, I was the only person she trusted not to panic. I took the responsibility seriously. Every receipt, transfer, supplier confirmation, and payment note passed through my hands. Then, one bright Thursday morning, the disaster arrived wearing perfume and pearls. Serafina came into my office looking pale, carrying a folder pressed against her chest. She told me there had been a mistake with a supplier payment, something small but urgent, and asked me to sign an internal correction form before the afternoon audit. I trusted her. I saw her as someone who had always defended me, someone who noticed my effort when others did not. So I read quickly, signed where she pointed, and went back to preparing the Belmere presentation. That signature became the blade they used against me. By lunchtime, Caspian stormed into the main office with 2 accountants behind him. His face was red, his voice sharp, and the whole staff froze as he announced that a large payment had disappeared from the Belmere project account. Then Serafina stepped forward with tears shining in her eyes. She said she had discovered irregular paperwork. She said she had tried to help me quietly because I was her favorite employee and she could not believe I would do something dishonest. She said the correction form proved I had authorized a false transfer. Every word fell like a stone. I stared at her, waiting for her to look at me and stop, waiting for the warm woman I thought I knew to return. But she never did. The office that had once felt like a second home became a courtroom. People I had helped avoided my eyes. My closest coworker, Nilo, looked torn but said nothing. Caspian demanded my badge, my laptop, and my keys. I tried to explain that Serafina had brought me the form, that I had signed under her instruction, that I had no access to move money anywhere. But my voice sounded small in a room already hungry for blame. By the end of that day, I was suspended without pay, escorted through the glass doors in full daylight while delivery trucks rolled past and pedestrians glanced at me as if I had been caught stealing bread. The shame followed me home like a shadow. My mother, who had moved in with me after her surgery, was sitting near the window folding laundry when I entered. She knew from my face that something terrible had happened. I wanted to be strong for her, but I broke down before I reached the kitchen. I told her everything while the afternoon sun faded across the walls. She did not ask whether I had done it. She simply placed her hand on mine and said that truth has a slower walk than lies, but it arrives with heavier footsteps. Those words kept me breathing through the worst nights. For days, my phone stayed silent except for messages from banks, bills, and one anonymous number telling me thieves deserve prison. The company issued a cold statement about internal misconduct. My name was not public, but in our industry, whispers travel faster than official letters. 2 job interviews were cancelled. A recruiter who once called me dependable suddenly said clients preferred candidates without controversy. I sold my watch, then my old camera, then the small gold chain my father had left me, just to keep medicine in the house and rent paid. Every morning was bright outside, but inside me it felt like midnight. Then the first crack appeared. Nilo came to see me on a Saturday afternoon, nervous and sweating, holding a paper bag like he needed an excuse to be there. He had brought groceries, but what mattered was the flash drive hidden beneath the bread. He said he could not sleep. He had reviewed old internal messages and noticed that the transfer Serafina blamed on me had been prepared before I ever signed the correction form. He could not prove everything, but he had copied meeting logs, file timestamps, and a deleted email from Serafina asking accounting to keep the Belmere issue quiet until after my signature was collected. For the first time in weeks, hope entered the room, thin but alive. We took the evidence to a lawyer named Mireya Sol, a woman with calm eyes and the kind of silence that made powerful people nervous. She listened without interrupting, then explained that companies often expect innocent employees to disappear because shame is cheaper than justice. She sent formal letters, requested audit trails, and warned Harrow and Finch not to destroy records. Caspian ignored the first letter. Serafina sent me a private message saying she was sorry things had gone so far, and that if I stayed quiet, they might give me a neutral reference. I stared at those words for a long time. Once, I would have accepted anything just to end the pain. But betrayal changes the shape of fear. I did not reply. The truth came out on a Wednesday, under the same kind of sharp daylight that had watched me leave the office in disgrace. Mireya obtained the full transaction trail. The missing payment had been redirected to a shell vendor connected to Serafina's cousin, and the correction form I signed had been used to make it look as if I had approved the final step. Caspian had not known at first, but once he discovered his wife was involved, he chose protection over honesty. He needed someone ordinary enough to sacrifice. I had been loyal, quiet, and easy to blame. That was my crime. When the legal notice reached Belmere Estate, everything changed. Judge Octavius Belmere demanded an independent review, and within 48 hours, Harrow and Finch's polished reputation began to crack. Staff members who had stayed silent suddenly remembered details. Nilo gave a statement. The accountants admitted they had been pressured. Serafina's tears no longer worked when placed beside timestamps, bank records, and emails. Caspian called me himself, his voice drained of its usual power, offering reinstatement, back pay, and a private apology. I let him finish. Then I told him the man he had thrown away no longer wanted a place at his table. The settlement helped clear my name, but healing was not instant. People think justice feels like fireworks, but sometimes it feels like sitting alone in daylight and realizing you survived something that should have destroyed you. I still had mornings when anger tightened my chest. I still remembered the way everyone looked at me when Serafina cried. But slowly, life began returning in small pieces. My mother started humming again while making tea. Nilo visited more often, no longer out of guilt but friendship. Mireya introduced me to 2 honest contractors who needed someone reliable to manage project operations. For the first time, I considered building something of my own. 6 months later, I opened a small consulting service called Clearline Project Management. No marble lobby, no luxury branding, no glass office that reflected people back as smaller than they were. Just a modest room above a bakery, 3 desks, honest contracts, and my name on the door. My first client was Judge Belmere. He said he had watched many people lie beautifully in his lifetime, but he respected those who could suffer publicly and still refuse to become bitter. That project became the beginning of a new life. By the end of the year, I had hired Nilo. By the next spring, we were handling more work than I ever imagined. One afternoon, almost a year after everything collapsed, Serafina came to my office. She looked different without the power of Harrow and Finch around her. The elegance remained, but the certainty was gone. She said Caspian had left the company, lawsuits were still unfolding, and she had lost more than she expected. She did not ask for a job. She did not ask for forgiveness directly. She only said she had ruined an innocent man because she was afraid of losing her comfortable life. I listened. The old Arman might have wanted to punish her with words. The new Arman understood that some people already live inside the punishment they created. I told her I hoped she would one day become honest enough to forgive herself, but that I could not carry her guilt for her. Then I let her leave. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because your support helps stories about truth, kindness, betrayal, and second chances reach more people who may need them today. And before the ending, I have one special request. Comment "Truth wins" if you believe that no lie can bury an honest heart forever. Years later, when I think about that terrible noon in the office, I no longer see myself as the man everyone blamed. I see a man being pushed out of a life too small for him. I see my mother's hand holding mine. I see Nilo choosing courage over comfort. I see a lawyer refusing to let the truth be erased. And I see daylight, not as something that exposed my shame, but as something that finally revealed who everyone truly was. Serafina once called me her favorite employee, then left me to take the fall. But what she never understood was this: sometimes the fall is not the end of your story. Sometimes it is the hard, painful drop that breaks the cage beneath you and teaches you how to stand where no one can ever make you small again.